Massive welcome to Carle with the health revolution. This evolution starts with us, by the way. Along with Clive's help in educating and bringing awareness our way so that we may make wise choices for our body, which is the only one we've got. We first saw Clive at the Critical Mass Radio event in Leeds, where he did a terrific job in informing people of certain choices and responsibilities as regards health, happiness, wellness and longevity. Clive's website is allthepurity.com for the highest quality products at a very fair cost. Tonight Clive will share his encyclopedic knowledge of nutrition and more in his very unique manner. Imagine what you can achieve with a pain-free, comfortable and optimally functioning body. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Clive.
Well, thank you very much all of you for coming, and my idea this evening is to teach you enough about health that you'll know more about health than your doctor does, and quite honestly that might not be that difficult. You know, we have this feeling that doctors know all about health, and if we lose our health we generally tend to go to the doctor looking for it back, but of course, as you probably know, they don't study health at medical school. It's not a subject they do. They don't really know about minerals, vitamins, amino acids, nutrition in general. You know, when did a doctor last ask you about your diet if you went to a doctor? When did your doctor last say, I wonder if it could be parasites that you've got? I've been looking at a little bit of parasites. I learned a very interesting fact last week that people who die in motorcycle accidents have 5 times more of a particular parasite in their bodies than normal people. And this parasite is called Toxoplasma gondii, and it comes from cats. And it affects animals in various ways. So if the parasite has jumped from the cat, say, into a rat, it changes the rat's brain, and the rat will be attracted to cat's urine. Therefore, whereas it would normally stay away from rats, now it's attracted to it, therefore the cat eats the rat. What happens when this Toxoplasma gondii gets into people is that it changes the nature of the brain and makes people reckless. Right? Just like it made the rat reckless to go near the cat. So, people who have motorcycle accidents have 5 times more of this parasite than normal people. So, do you know some reckless people? Are you capable of recklessness? Is it that you've got a parasite that's affecting your brain? Because you know, an autopsy, when they weigh a human body, roughly speaking, 2 pounds in weight isn't you. Approximately 2 pounds in weight of bacteria and other bodies that aren't you. So you contain about 100 trillion cells, but you contain 10 times that number in parasites and bacteria in your gut. So who are you? Well, only 1/10 of you is you. The other 9/10 are other things. So you want to be nice to them. Yeah. And where are those things mainly living? Well, they're mainly living in your gut. Lots of beneficial bacteria in the gut. And they say, and when I talk about they, who knows who they really are, but we all seem to accept that they say these things. And one of the things they say is that about 85% of your immune system is in the gut. So that being the case, each time you drink a glass of water with chlorine in it, you're beginning to wipe out some of the friendly bacteria. If you take a drug from the doctor, you're wiping out the friendly bacteria. And most of us, if we've had an antibiotic at some time in our lives, have been permanently affected by that antibiotic. And when I became ill 27 years ago, it was after I'd had a very high course of antibiotics, and my body packed up. I I became so ill, they dumped me in hospital for 3 weeks. I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. I'd become arthritic to such a degree that I looked like I was 90. I had horrible growths all over my body on the joints. I was getting sweats for hours. I had all sorts of issues. And after 3 weeks in hospital, they said, well, we don't know what your problem actually is. We know you've got arthritis, we know you've become type 1 diabetic, and they listed everything that had gone wrong with me. But they said, we don't know what the cure is, and we don't know what the cause was. And they informed me that they could operate and give me drugs right away. And not wanting to be operated on or have drugs, I got wheeled out, and I got taken to a natural therapist called Patrick Holford, who you may have heard of. He's written about 20 books. And Patrick Holford said to me, you're not low on operations, you're not low on drugs, you're low on minerals and vitamins. And he gave me a whole stack of minerals and vitamins. And I reversed my arthritis completely. It took about a year, but all the nasty growths disappeared. Suddenly I could go upstairs again, suddenly I could walk again, suddenly I could drive my car again, and everything was fine. I was low on vitamins and minerals. The doctors had never suggested such a thing. That's because they are not educated about cures. Their doctors are taught about treatments. So, some years later, I was in a lucky enough position to have a bit of time on my hands. I had an organic farm at that time because I felt very strongly that eating chemicals wasn't a good idea and we should be eating naturally. And I had time to start studying, so I started studying subjects like spontaneous remission. Because I'd experienced spontaneous remission, the doctor said it was hopeless. They said there was nothing they could do for me. And my dad's best friend recovered from cancer. He went on along similar lines of me, of choosing natural ways to deal with it. So I started studying cancer patients, the ones who'd recovered, against all the odds, trying to work out what they'd done right. And it was pretty clear that most of them, eating a reasonably good diet. They started supplementing things like vitamin C, vitamin D, and various minerals and vitamins. But there was something way beyond that. And I pinpointed it fairly quickly, actually, to 2 words, and essentially, it was acceptance and gratitude. This is what happens in the psyche of somebody who's got a serious disease. They spend the first time going, why me? This is really unfair, what have I done to deserve this? And they get angry and upset, and you can imagine the normal reaction of being told you've got cancer or some life-threatening disease. Now, if they believe the diagnosis, this can be pretty dangerous. There's a study done recently of people who've been newly diagnosed with cancer, and in the first week of being diagnosed with cancer, their chances of getting a heart attack increased by 25 times. So you've got 25 times more chance of having a heart attack in the first week after you've been diagnosed with cancer. So the very first thing is if the doctor says anything to you, don't believe it. Or at the very least, check it out very carefully. But if they say words like, you've got X time to live, if you believe it, you can probably time your life by it. It's very important not to believe what you're told, to prove it for yourself. So, what happens with people who recover from cancer and those sort of diseases is at some point they stop hating it and start accepting the situation. Then it goes past acceptance and into gratitude. And this is what they all say. They say, well, I knew I was getting better when I became grateful to the cancer, grateful to the heart issues, grateful to whatever it is, because it was at that point that I realized I had to change my life. I had to move house, change job, change partner, deal with my problems, get over my past, whatever it was. And that's the key, gratitude. That actually, despite whatever seems to be going wrong with your body, maybe it is all happening for a reason. I had to ask myself, well, why did I get ill? And I really suffered with it. It was horrible. And now I'm of the conclusion that the reason I had to suffer like that was so I could tell you about it. And so you don't have to. And I think if any of you are ill in this room right now, Why is it happening to you? Are you cross about it, or are you happy about it? Because the sooner you can get to the happy about it stage and realise that everything happens for a reason. I'm just in the process of reading this book by Anita Morjani called Dying to Be Me, and she died of cancer, and she went through the typical near-death experience where, you know, you're aware of everybody talking even though you're in a coma, and she went as far to death as it's possible to go, and she says that what happened to her was that she had the choice. She had a choice to go back and survive and recover from cancer, which she did in days, or to stay where she was. I'd recommend that you read the book. I recommend also that you study the work of a woman called Lorraine Day. If you really want to know about how cancer can be reversed, Lorraine Day's story is amazing. It's on YouTube, and she had a cancer the size of a grapefruit and shrunk it right down to nothing. And it's amazing what one can do with a little bit of intelligence and a little bit of knowledge. I'd like to do a demonstration. Can I have a volunteer? Anybody at all like to come up and volunteer? Just, would you like to come up? All I did was I thought a thought, okay, depending, some people can resist the thought, some people can't. It's very important to know how powerful your thoughts are. It's just a little martial arts trick. But you can literally take all the strength out of somebody with thoughts. So it's very important to realise that your thoughts have possibly more power than you might have realised up until now. They've done some recent work with fMRI scanners. So they get somebody ill in a hospital, they put them in the fMRI scanner, so they're looking at the brain, and they get, let's say, their mother, who might be on another continent entirely, to think healing thoughts of the ill person. The moment the mother, let's say in Canada, thinks the healing thoughts, the daughter's brain in Blackpool in the MRI scanner lights up. Your thoughts work, your thoughts have a tremendous healing power, and so it's very, very important to use your thoughts wisely, particularly if you're thinking about yourself. You know, a lot of us have a lot of negative self-talk. You know, we think we're not good enough, or we're chastising ourselves for whatever reasons. And it's a question of practice to always be in a state of gratitude and acceptance of what is, that everything's all right, and suddenly things can get better from that point. I recommend that before you go to sleep at night, you look forward to what you want to do in the morning, because a lot of us go to bed at night without any pre-planning as to what the next day is going to bring. And if you can, no matter how small the thing you're looking forward to could be, if you can go to bed looking forward to the next day and make that first thought in the morning one of gratitude, you know, grateful to be alive, it's amazing what a positive effect it can have on your whole day. Now, other things to have a positive effect on your whole day, let's just go through the most important elements of health, because there are about 100 elements which make everybody healthy, and my contention is, if you're healthy, therefore you're not ill. So, what are the elements? Well, sunshine, number one. Okay? At this time of year, people begin to get colds and flus. And why is it that we get colds and flus at this time of year? Is it that the germs which have been hiding in their little hidey places come out because it's cold weather? No, it's not the case. It's because we run out of vitamin D. We run out of sunshine by October, November. And when I realised this and I started supplementing with vitamin D, that was the end of colds and flus for me. I didn't get any more. So sunshine is incredibly important. Now, vitamin D, if you go to the doctor and you say, how much vitamin D should I be taking? The current recommendation is 400 international units. Now, I take 50,000 international units once a week, on average, but there are others who are taking 200,000. There are some people who are taking 200,000 a day. And I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm suggesting, with everything that I speak about, I'm suggesting you just do your own research. And it's all there on page 1 of Google. But let me tell you what they were doing in the 1930s with vitamin D. At that point, there was quite a lot of discussion about vitamin D in the 30s and early 40s, because they were giving 20 milligrams a day of that version of vitamin D. And when they were curing a lot of things with that sort of level of vitamin D, and when the pharmaceutical industry discovered that vitamin D was getting very popular and was curing people, they pushed to have the measurement changed. So we don't measure it in milligrams anymore, we now measure it in international units. So whereas 20 milligrams was a popular dose, when they recalculated it as international units, they came out with 200 as the magic number. So now it's 10 times more than 20, so must be good to 200 IUs. But how much is 20 milligrams equal to in IUs? 20 milligrams is equal to 1 million IUs, not 200. Now, the type of vitamin D they were taking then was, if you like, a lower potency than now. So I'm not suggesting that anybody takes 1 million IUs of vitamin D. But the people who are taking, let's say, 50,000 at one hit, I've had people who've said, well, you know, I thought I had flu earlier on this afternoon, but it appears to have stopped. So vitamin D, very important to look into. Now, going through the elements, we've covered some. Let's look at water. You know, we are, as you know, mainly water. Our eyes perhaps have the highest water content of our body, along with our brain. And the scientists say that if you're 1% dehydrated, they can measure that. They can tell because your IQ will be lower if you're just 1% dehydrated. Most of us are at least 10% dehydrated, and some of us are 20% dehydrated. So how much of your brain power are you really able to access right now if you're 10, 20% dehydrated?
How do we test for that?
Well, for one thing, you can look at your urine. If your urine is next to clear, you're probably all right. But if it's yellow, then you're probably dehydrated. If you are, let's say you're an average sort of size guy, and you're drinking sort of 2.5, 3 litres of water, that might be an appropriate amount. If you're smaller, obviously less. If you're bigger, more. But you see, a lot of people don't really drink a lot of water. They say, well, it's fine because I'm drinking tea and coffee and juices and what have you. But you know, think about your car. Would you wash your car in juice or coffee or tea and expect it to be clean? Well, no. You'd wash it in water. That's the only real solvent that gets your car clean. And a lot of us aren't drinking water at all. And we're wondering why we're not so well. But let me show you something about water. This is just a glass of ordinary water, and this is a green tea bag. And so if we dunk the green tea bag in a glass of water, you know what's going to happen? Nothing, basically. You can dunk it all you like. Maybe eventually a little bit of colour will come out, but nothing really. But if you change the quality of the water, these are minerals. These are just fulvic minerals. These are soil-based minerals. They come from the ground. And by adding them to the water, I've changed how wet the water is. Now imagine this green tea bag as your cell, right? And you want a nice clean cell. Well, you'll now notice what's happening. It's changed the nature of the water, so the water now has the capacity to pull everything out of that tea bag, and the same happens in your cells. If you drink ordinary water, you know, it'll have a reasonable cleaning effect on the cell. But if you add a few drops of fulvic minerals to the water, suddenly you can detox everything in the cell. You can detox the radiation, the heavy metals, all the poisoning, all the stuff, the crud that's accumulated over years. So arguably the most important of any supplement for your cells are fulvic minerals. Now you can get fulvic minerals just by going outside and digging up some soil, pouring some water on it and straining it off, because every soil on the planet has a fulvic and humic component. Every food should have fulvic minerals in it. But unfortunately, because of modern farming, as you're aware, they've poisoned the soils, poisoning all the life in the soils, and now the minerals that used to be in the soil are missing, and the fulvic fraction, the part that does the cleaning of the cells, is missing. So, imagine you had a car engine to rebuild, and you rebuilt it, but you left one washer out. Now, we know what's going to happen. The car engine either won't run at all, or if it does run, it won't run perfectly, and probably won't run for very long. And our body's the same. If you're missing one mineral, your body can function poorly. And when I was arthritic, I was missing a few minerals. The main one was magnesium. And magnesium is, I think, the most important of all the individual minerals. And the reason it's so important is that if you don't have enough of it, well, you're likely to die. Let me see which of you have got any of these symptoms. Do any of you suffer from restless leg? Any of you suffer from muscle? Just hold your hands down and we'll put them all up at the end. Muscle cramps, twitches, maybe twitches around the eyes, cramps, that would include menstrual cramps, all sorts of cramping, heart issues. Could you put your hands up if you get any of those twitches, spasms, cramps? Is that all? Surely more of you. Yeah, no, that's good. This side of the room's less honest, they're not putting their hands up. You're better over that side. Now, if you get a muscle cramp anywhere in your body, your legs, for example, well, that could be death, because if you've got a muscle cramp in your heart muscle, well, that's a heart attack. Magnesium is literally a sort of a lubricating oil for the heart. People who have arrhythmia, people who have uneven blood pressure. Magnesium is the answer to all those questions. How quickly would it take to stop a muscle cramp? 3 minutes, something like that. You can stop heart attacks and strokes while they're happening with magnesium. If you want to find a good doctor, you want to go to the emergency room, because the emergency room doctors, their job is to get you back from the dead, to keep you alive no matter what, and they know their stuff in the emergency room. A good emergency room doctor knows this, that if 4 patients came in either having strokes or heart attacks, and they're having a stroke or heart attack right there in front of them, if they take magnesium sulfate and inject it straight into the patients, instead of 4 people dying, only 1 out of 4 might die. That's the power of magnesium, to switch off heart attacks and strokes right away. So if it has that sort of power, clearly you want to be ahead of the game and have enough magnesium in your cells in the first place. So why is it that everybody's low on magnesium? When I say everybody, 95% of us are low on magnesium. Some of us have got the symptoms so badly that we're showing muscle cramps and physical problems. So why is it? Well, there are a number of reasons. It's missing from food because of chemical agriculture. The moment you take a brown food product, strip out the brown to make it white, like white flour, white rice, the moment you've taken the brown out, you've taken out the magnesium and almost all the other minerals. So white foods tend to be very, very dangerous and magnesium depleted. And I would say lack of magnesium is the cause of more diseases than anything else, probably. Certainly arthritis, fibromyalgia, a whole host of diseases have a magnesium deficiency at the bottom of it. Now, what can you do about it? Well, you can take tablets. But if you take too much magnesium, it moves the bowels. That's the nature of it. So the best way to do it is to take it as a spray. This is called magnesium oil. There's no oil in it, it just feels oily when you rub it on. And you spray it on and rub it into your skin. You could spray it on after you've had a shower, for example, or before bed. People who are having problems sleeping often find that magnesium helps their sleep. Magnesium stops panic attacks, stops anxiety, worry. Right? Anybody who's nervous may well find that they relax beautifully with magnesium. You know, it's why people used to go to the spas. You know, people were ill or they needed to relax, they'd go to the spas, Baden or somewhere, and soak in the waters. So what were they getting in those waters? Well, it was magnesium. Magnesium-rich waters. The other reason people went to spas was to get sulfur. And sulfur is another element that is very much missing from modern foods. It's gone. And anybody who has arthritis, for example, should be considering taking sulfur. And the most famous form of sulfur, which is very inexpensive, is called MSM, monosulfuromethane. It's made from pine trees. And MSM helps dissolve calcium in the body, as does magnesium. Let me just explain how the muscles work. Calcium allows your muscles to contract. Magnesium allows them to relax. And this is true of all the cells of the body. If you want the cells to relax, you need magnesium to do it. I would say magnesium could add 10 years to people's lives, or could make their lives a misery if they haven't got it. So let's go on through the elements. Water, if any of you are drinking water straight from the tap without filtering it, you want to stop that habit right away, because they're poisoning your water with a whole host of things, chlorine obviously being the most obvious one. And people forget that chlorine was the poison gas of choice in World War I. And it was a really, really popular gas to kill people with. Fluoride was extremely popular in World War II. They gave fluoride to all the concentration camp victims, because chlorine and fluoride and bromine. They gave bromine to the soldiers in World War I to stop them getting horny and make them compliant. All those halogens make people compliant. Don't bother. That kind of attitude. And it depletes the thyroid. You know, could I ask how many people have got a thyroid issue in this room? Any one of you? Don't believe it. Thank you. There are going to be more of you in this room.
May not be aware of it.
May not be aware of it, exactly. So, how would you know if you've got a thyroid issue or you're low on iodine? Well, your elbows might be a little less than perfectly smooth. Your elbows should be exactly the same smoothness as your arm. If your elbows are slightly dry, then you're probably low on iodine, you've probably got a slight thyroid issue. If you get cold hands and feet, or your temperature control's gone out of whack, you're probably low on iodine, you've probably got a thyroid issue. If the outside of your eyebrows are thinning, same deal. If you feel like you've got brain fog, it could well be you're low on iodine. So what happens when people start supplementing with iodine if they need it? Well, most people say to me, you know, my brain feels sharper. I seem to be able to remember why I went in a room. You know, that kind of thing. So anybody who's not thinking as sharply as they should, I would recommend that they consider magnesium, fulvic minerals and iodine as a way to boost their brain. Chances are those three will also significantly boost your energy levels. And the thing that people report to me most is increased energy levels. And pretty much everybody's tired these days. Now, as far as water is concerned, you know, we are clearly mainly water, but primarily we're made of hydrogen. You know, hydrogen is number one on the periodic table. It's the smallest atom of the lot. And we're primarily H2O, and we are primarily hydrogen beings. Now, why is this important? Well, if we're mainly hydrogen, the type of water we've got running around our veins and blood and so on is very, very important. And as you've seen, you can change the nature of water dramatically by just adding a few minerals to it. Now, water has memory, and this is why it's important with the self-talk and talking to other people and monitoring what you're thinking, because you can very much change the nature of water with thoughts. This is why traditionally cultures have always blessed their food before they ate it. You know, when I was brought up, the idea of saying a prayer at dinner time used to really annoy me. I hated it because they forced me to do it at school. But now, having seen the evidence, I can see why people do it. You literally can physically change the nature of food, the nature of water in a measurable way with thoughts. Let me talk to you a little bit more about the fMRI scans. We talked earlier about them, family members correcting the illnesses of people by thought. They did another test recently, same fMRI scanner. They got a random number generator to generate two different types of pictures. A nice picture like a flower or a butterfly, non-threatening, and then pictures like car crashes and upsetting pictures. So put the person in the MRI scanner and the random number generator starts generating either the nice image or the unfriendly image. Nobody knows which one's going to come next, except the brain of the person in the fMRI scanner 5 seconds before the random number generator has decided which image it's going to be. If it's the frightening image, the brain responds 5 seconds in advance of it happening, showing that there isn't just one type of time. And some of you may well be aware that there are several types of time going on. I became aware of it the first time I had a serious motorcycle accident, because I came off my bike at high speed and I suddenly observed my body extricating itself from the bike. I watched my legs going in these extraordinary odd angles as my body didn't get caught on the brakes or the steering or anything as I came off. And then suddenly, it was all happening in incredibly slow motion. Time slowed right down to like minutes, and I realized that my body was tightening itself up and I was folding myself into a fetal ball. And it seemed to take for ages. I realized I'd hit the ground rolling, and I must have been doing 60 or 70 miles an hour or something like that, but I felt no pain whatsoever. And it went on for ages, minute after minute, rolling, rolling, rolling. It was probably 10 seconds, but as far as I was concerned, it was ages. And I thought, well, it must be all right now, so I must be going really slowly. So I stuck my arm out and pull it back in immediately, so that my arm got ripped to shreds, because actually I was going really fast. But my subconscious knew exactly how to protect me. If I hadn't put my arm out, I wouldn't have been completely fine. So time is very malleable. Okay.
Or is it our consciousness that's malleable? I think your perceptions speed up incredibly during an accident of that nature.
Yes. Yes.
You're in the present, aren't you? That's why.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've had that experience myself, and I think as your own perceptions speed up incredibly.
Yes, I think so. But it was amazing because I was just observing my body doing this stuff. It had nothing to do with me. Just while we're talking, back onto water again, those Brita filters, the jug filters, actually are fairly effective at getting rid of the crud of chlorine and some of the chemicals, but there are a couple of other ways to do it. I use one of these, which is an ozone generator. These cost about 35 quid, so they're not terribly expensive. What it does is it makes ozone, which is oxygen-free. And to explain ozone, let me just briefly explain the cycle of water. Water's an amazing thing, because it can exist in so many different states. And of course, one of the states that water achieves is weightlessness as it floats upwards in an anti-gravity fashion. And so the water from this planet evaporates upwards, goes up into the ozone layer where it's purified. So it's purified once by the very fact it's being distilled. Then it's purified a second time when it hits the ozone layer, and the H2O, the water, takes an extra oxygen atom from the ozone. So now it's become H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide. It then rains hydrogen peroxide, and hydrogen peroxide is another very beneficial cleaner, if you like, so the water is triple cleaned and then it falls down as rain. Now, so if you take a glass of water and bubble ozone through it, then you've got ozone and oxygen gathering in that water, and you can ozonate your body by drinking the stuff. You can also ozonate water to clean fruits and vegetables. So let's say you go down to the supermarket and you buy Defco's best fruit and vegetables, right? Now, as you know, I've got a list, so I'm sorry. If you go to Defco, I try to say it right, it just doesn't go out properly. I have this problem with all the supermarkets, not just Defco. You know, all these supermarkets do tell you exactly what you're going to get. I mean, you know, people who come from abroad and they've never seen a supermarket, so they go into a supermarket and they notice that maybe their weight is rising, and that's why they call one of them Waitrose. There's another one that's even more blatant. They really warn you before you even go in the shop. They call it all dye. But you know, Defco is the world's favourite supermarket, and so let's say you've got some fruit, vegetables, and you know it's probably been sprayed. And the British government recently said that every apple, for example, has been sprayed with 43 different chemicals. And if you think that washing those off is going to work, remember that they've sprayed them on with chemicals that don't get washed off in rain. So just washing that apple isn't necessarily going to do it. You're maybe going to have to scrub it with vinegar or something to get it off. Or you can bubble ozone through water with the fruit or vegetables in. And the ozone does a remarkable job at neutralizing chemicals. It can't neutralize every chemical. It can't neutralize fluoride. But it does a great job at chlorine and many of the drugs that may have got into your water supply that are being recycled to you. So, also, if you haven't got a smelly room, you've just done some cooking or something, ozone cancels out smells. It's very, very useful like that. So, I use this a lot.
So, I've got one of those, and can you put it in your bath water?
You could put it in your bath water, yes. You want to be aware that if you can smell the ozone, that's not terribly good. You know, a little ozone is great, but by the time you can actually smell it, you want to open the window. But yes, you can ozonate the whole bath, and it can be very, very, very good thing to do. There are a number of things you can do, by the way, with a bath. You can put some bicarbonate of soda in the bath. Bicarbonate of soda in the bath is very, very cleansing to the body. It will draw toxins out. You can put borax in your bath. Now, our ancestors would have known borax. They used it in washing powders. It's very useful if you've got to get some clothes clean, shove a bit of borax in there. Borax contains boron, and if you put a bit of borax, let's say a teaspoonful or two in the bath, that will again extract toxins from you. Borax, boron, one of the few things that will neutralize fluoride, and I put a pinch of boron in my bottle of water before I left home, just in case you have any fluoride up here in your water, so I don't want to get in it. If you've got fluoride in your toothpaste, either throw it away, or if you're really feeling mean and there's somebody you don't like, give it to them. Better just to throw it away. Yes, you can. You can. can find it in health food stores, but fluoride isn't the only ingredient you want to have missing from your toothpaste. You don't want sodium lauryl sulfate in there either. Sometimes it's called laureth or sodium laureth. You know, imagine that we had a fleet of greasy, dirty lorries that we wanted to steam clean. Well, we'd use sodium lauryl sulfate to clean dirty engines. And it's in almost every soap, almost in every shampoo. It's in your toothpaste. You don't need any of it. So, other things to put in your bath. Epsom salts are a favourite.
I use a Himalayan bath salt in my...
Right, okay. What, the sort of pink salt?
Yeah.
Okay, I have an issue with pink salt. While it's a hell of a lot better than table salt, and if any of you are using table salt at home, keep it for defrosting the pavement, but don't eat the stuff, it's very dangerous. If any of you are eating pink salt, consider when did you last see a pink ocean? If any of you are eating sea salt from a supermarket, if it's dry and white, think, is this natural? Because it's not. Salt 2,000 years ago was worth about the same as gold. 2,000 years ago, the Roman legions were paid partly in salt. The word salary comes from sal. No farmer would leave animals in the field without a salt lick. The only people who are told to eat less salt are people. Now, when I became diabetic 27 years ago, the GP said to me, you've got to cut down on your salt drastically. And I didn't want to, because I liked salt in my food, but I did what he told me. And for 10 years, I used to get muscle cramps. Until somebody said, I never got muscle cramps before, until somebody said, oh, you know, the reason you're getting muscle cramps is you're low on magnesium, because you're not eating real salt, or enough salt. I started eating more salt, and the cramps went away. People don't realise, you know, we believe everything these doctors tell us. They've told us if you eat salt, your blood pressure's going to go up. This is true, maybe if you eat sodium chloride, table salt, but if you eat real salt, and real salt is wet, real salt is grey, but you'll notice it's grey and it's wet. And the reason it's wet is because if we went down to the seaside and we got some sea and we dried it in the wind and the rain, when it was dry, it would never be completely dry, it would always be damp because salt has a very high magnesium content and magnesium absorbs water. So what the supermarkets do, believing you want dry white salt, is they take the magnesium out. And in the process of taking the magnesium out, they've also taken out lots of other of the minerals. So sea salt from the supermarkets is not sea salt, it's refined sea salt with lots of bits missing. This is just the most basic dried ocean you can possibly get. You're probably noticing it tastes different to ordinary salt. It will lower blood pressure, not raise blood pressure. If you've got low blood pressure, it just balances. Salt is the most important food on the planet in a way, and we've been told to eat less of it. It's possible that maybe 50% of people's problems out there are to do with not drinking enough water and not eating enough salt. It's huge. It's huge. To try and explain a little bit about minerals, some people don't realise there are two types of minerals. There are organic minerals and there are inorganic minerals. Now, salt is the inorganic mineral. It's the type that's been ground up by years of waves smashing against rocks. Organic minerals are ones like fulvic, which comes from the soil, or the sort of minerals you get in plants. Now, so although salt is inorganic, and therefore you need quite a lot of it, because you eat salt, maybe only 2 or 3% is actually assimilated into the body. But if you eat minerals from vegetables, it's 100% assimilable. Now, to try and explain it, with the fulvic minerals, they know where to find these deposits in great strength. You've probably seen those documentaries where animals cross hundreds of miles or dozens of miles to lick the rocks to get the minerals. And so it's been known for ages where the mineral deposits are. So with this stuff, what they do is they take some soil, they mine the soil with the fulvic minerals in, they soak it in water for 3 years, and when they drain the water off from the soil, it goes straight into these bottles, and there's enough minerals in here for 4 months. So all they did is they soaked some soil, drained off the water after 3 years, and you got 4 months supply just in this tiny quantity. So you only need 1 drop in a glass of water to get an effect. And I tend to put a drop in every glass of water that I drink. And the interesting thing about it, because it's organic, it's never died. Now, let's take other examples. This is made, they think, from rainforests. You know, maybe a rainforest got crushed 100 million years ago, and sometimes when that happens it becomes oil, or it becomes coal, or diamonds, or whatever. But in the case of this stuff, it never completely died. The diamonds, the coal, they've all changed from organic living material to inorganic, but this never changed. It's 100 million years old, but it's still alive. There are still fragments of DNA and RNA in here that are still functioning, still actually alive. This is why it's so against drinking water with fluoride or chlorine in. This stuff, fulvic minerals, reacts with chlorine and fluoride. So if you use this, you have to use filtered water. It must not be used with chlorine and fluoride. But the first time I tried this, I woke up the next morning feeling a completely different man. I felt like I'd dropped 10 years in how my body felt after taking this stuff. It's very, very powerful, very important. Now, if anybody, the pink Himalayan salt, right. Now, salt should be wet. Himalayan salt is dry. Now, what happens with the inland salts? You know, this is where a sea, maybe when the cataclysm happened or whatever, and the seas now became inland and dried up. What happens is that the rain comes down and it washes through the salt, the land salt, and washes the more soluble minerals away downstream. So after a while, you're left with the less soluble minerals. So the reason you don't see pink oceans, and how is pink salt pink? You don't get pink oceans, right? What's happened is that a lot of the soluble stuff has been washed out millions of years ago, and now you're left with a partial salt. So while pink salt is a lot better than sodium chloride, I'm not happy that it's the best salt you could have. I think pure sea salt is better. However, with Fukushima and mercury poisoning and whatever, there's another argument that says, well, maybe the rock salt's better, so it hasn't been poisoned with radiation and mercury. And I don't know the answer to that one, but at the moment I'm preferring to eat sea salt. I feel that's the safest way to go. Now, I'm told that we need to have a break for some tea, so I will continue in about 15 minutes or whenever you Okay, so I want to talk about the brain. Any of you who have been told that low fat, low cholesterol is a good idea, they lied to you. Your brain is made of fat. Your brain is made of cholesterol. The outside of all your cells is made of cholesterol. And it was criminal, the advice they gave, eat low fat, eat low cholesterol. Completely criminal, because that's what your brain is made of. Alzheimer's didn't exist 50 years ago. No doctor wrote a description of Alzheimer's. It's a new disease. And it's not really a disease at all, it's just bad nutrition. So if you want to recover somebody's brain, you want to feed them soft-boiled eggs. Egg yolks and the brain are made for one another. You want to give them coconut oil. 6 tablespoonfuls of coconut oil will take the edge off Alzheimer's. This woman said that she tried to give her mum 6 tablespoonfuls of coconut oil a day, but she couldn't manage it, but the mum did manage to take 4 tablespoonfuls a day. And she said she'd given up speaking to her mum on the phone 2 years prior because of the Alzheimer's. And within 6 weeks of 4 tablespoonfuls of coconut oil a day, she was able to speak to her mum on the phone again, and she reckoned that she'd reversed 2 years of Alzheimer's in 6 weeks using cholesterol. So, you know, in the Bible, did they kill the lean steak or the fatted calf? It was the fatted calf. When we were at school, did they say the cream was the best or the worst? They said it was the best. You know, 2 things rise to the top, the cream and the scum. The problem is, the cream should be running the place, but the scum are doing it. Temporarily. So, I'd just like to point something out to people. If I were to tell you that some of the insects were missing, you'd say, well, we know this. We know that half the bees are missing, or whatever it is. So what if I said to you, what if 95% of them were missing? Would you wake up and feel, gosh, 95% are missing? I really ought to do something. Can I just ask you as a straw poll, if I told you that 98% of all the insects in England were missing, how many of you put your hands up and do anything about it?
Wouldn't know what to do.
Well, it's assuming that we had the answer. Okay, so half of you would do something if 98% of the insects were missing. Because you see, 99% of the insects are missing, but more. 20 years ago, any of us driving a car will remember that on a summer's day, you had Armageddon going on your windscreen, right? Blood and guts all over the place. And I remember having to buy special squirty sprays and chisels to try and get the dead insects off my windscreen. Have any of you seen a dead insect on your windscreen this year?
No.
They're gone. This is called extinction. And we're next.
There isn't another explanation for that. I'm sorry. Not it.
Well, they've got really clever at avoiding my windscreen.
No, your windscreen has a lower rake. And to
No, it's the same on the front of my car as well. No, I mean, they're gone. They're gone. I'd love to think that it's down to the angle of my windscreen.
I still get them on my bike, don't I?
I get them in that.
If I ride about 10 miles in a summer's evening on my bike, then I'll be covered in splats and eventually I'll probably get them off.
Well, it may depend where you live. Yeah. So I mean, clearly there are areas of the country where they haven't been spraying so much, and that insects are more in abundance. But where I live down in Wiltshire, they're gone. I used to have bats. They arrived for a few days and died because there are no insects. There aren't any. Buddleia. You know, there's buddleia in my garden. There used to be thousands of butterflies thick on the buddleia. Now there are none. You know, maybe one.
Do you have no swallows there?
All swallows. We used to have swallows in the garage every year for 45 years. Gone. No more swallows. I'm watching mass extinction going on.
We still get quite a lot of butterflies up here on Dudley, so I think we're being lucky.
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly where I'm down south, it's awful. The insects are gone.
What do you put it down to?
Neocotinide fertilizers. I imagine there are a number of possible poisons out there.
Fluoride in the water as well, being used in all the gardens, fluoride?
Yeah, we don't, because most of the politicians live down south, they don't normally put fluoride in the water down south, they leave that for you guys up north. Well, it seems to be true.
Chemtrail pollution.
Yeah, we get lots of could be chemtrails.
There's a lot of truth in your joke, what you used to.
Well, I think so. Okay, so let's move on. They express statins are the key to long life. I just want to try and, I'm raising this to show you how they do it, okay? How most people take a newspaper like this and believe it. So it says, heart pills and exercise will save millions of lives. Now, that's really funny. Let me just read a little bit of it. Experts are already calling for everyone over the age of 50 to be prescribed statins. They say administering statins to an extra 5 million people would cut heart attacks and strokes by 10,000 a year. So, remember it says heart pills and exercise will save millions of lives. Right? We go to the page 4 where it carries on. And it says, and will save at least 2,000 lives. So it's gone from millions down to at least 2,000 in one paragraph. Leader of the study, Dr. Peter Kokinas of the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Washington said, unfit middle-aged people and old people would only need to undertake moderate and feasible activity, such as walking or gardening, to gain the same or better protection than achieved by statins. So there's the leader of the study saying that a bit of walking is better than statins. And it says here, the pills, which cost as little as 40p a day, are already taken by 8 million Britons to reduce cholesterol and protect against heart attacks, heart disease and stroke, and is shown to be a potent cancer buster. Now all this is a bunch of lies, essentially. For every one person a statin can help, it damages 50. That's what is now being shown. And it's damaging the eyes, it's damaging the kidneys, it's serious stuff. But so 40p a day. Here in another article, obviously written by a different health correspondent, it says NHS gets £1.40 one drug. You know, what happened to the 40p one? We get the £1. Just because they don't advertise drugs in England doesn't affect the fact that the owners of the Express and other newspapers take pharmaceutical adverts in every other country in the world, like America, and they're not going to write articles that are anti the very drugs that they're paid to advertise in their business. On the same basis, doctors are paid by how many ill people they're looking after. The old Chinese system, the doctors were paid by how many well people they had on their books. A family would pay the Chinese doctor, but if somebody got ill in the family, they stopped paying until the person was better again. And that encouraged the doctors to keep people healthy. But here, doctors are paid by how many ill people are on the books. And if one of those ill people, for sake of argument, we'll call them golden geese, if one of the golden geese dies, one of their patients dies, well, obviously they're at a loss, so they get compensated. They get 70 quid each time they sign a death certificate, which doesn't seem quite right.
Nice little Christmas.
Well, if you're low on payments on your new rolls or something.
I'll few people.
Yeah. So the system has to change. The system has to be that the NHS has to become a national health service again, because currently it's a national disease service. It has nothing to do with health.
I'm always struck by the irony of going past the so-called health centre. If you're healthy, you don't go there.
And it's manned by people who've never studied health. It wasn't on their curriculum. So, I mentioned at the beginning that there are essentially 100 elements that we all need to be healthy. About 70 of them are contained in the fulvic minerals that we were discussing earlier. And many of the others are encompassed within a really good multi-mineral. multi-mineral, multivitamin. But the problem is that if you go to the average health food shop to buy a good multivitamin, multi-mineral, what are you going to get? Is it going to be good? And the answer basically is very seldom. The type of supermarket multi-mineral, multivitamins that they sell are made often with artificial ingredients. You know, a vitamin works if it's real. You've probably read in high-quality newspapers like this that vitamins have been proved to be ineffective. Whenever you read those sort of headlines, it's because they've used artificial minerals to do, artificial vitamins to do the testing. So if you go into a supermarket and buy their vitamins, you're likely to be ill because they're using artificial vitamin A, they're using artificial vitamin E. 98% of all the vitamin C coming into this country right now is made from genetically modified corn. You can't trust anything these days. It really is, you have to know the source. And one of the reasons I started a supplements company was because I wanted to provide people with stuff that actually worked, and stuff that wasn't genetically modified. And it's so important to understand what genetically modified can do. The Russians have done tests years ago now with fast breeding small mammals like hamsters and guinea pigs and so on. 3 or 4 generations and they're sterile. The reports on what goes on with genetically modified corn in particular, remember there's going to be genetically modified corn in a lot of food you're eating nowadays, even though they try to tell you it's not there. If it's corn syrup, it's going to be, because all the corn worldwide pretty much is now contaminated. You know, even in the most remotest parts of the world, the GM corn is cropping up. They banned GM wheat in 1986, the very first GM wheat they made. They banned it right away because they showed it was very dangerous. The Chinese, 19 years later or something, have just rejected a huge boatload full of wheat for America because they found it had a high percentage of this genetically modified wheat that supposedly never got out and was recalled. They can't put the genie back in the box with genetically modified. And I was reading a statistic this afternoon, and I can't remember it precisely, but it was something like there was 500 times less of one mineral than there should be in genetically modified corn, just by changing it to genetically modified. They've so drastically changed the whole nature of the product that it's no wonder that the rodents aren't surviving more than 3 or 4 generations. If we want to, we need to stop eating genetically modified food.
It's not only that, there's also the concentration of glyphosate in GM, because they modify it specifically to be glyphosate tolerant. So you end up with a lot more of that in it as well, which again affects fertility, etc.
Exactly, and health practitioners are now seeing glyphosate poisoning and recognising it for what it is. It usually takes at least a year or 2 before the body will show up glyphosate poisoning. And it's becoming, unfortunately, more and more common. The good news is that even just after a month of not eating genetically modified, the body starts to recover. The body recovers very fast. And there is a method for returning genetically modified seeds back to their original stage. Ciba Geigy, the drugs company, patented and therefore announced to the world what they call the Ciba Geigy effect. Is if you take genetically modified seeds, you can beam frequencies at them, then plant them, and they will revert back to an earlier type. In fact, they've now reverted wheat seeds back 2,000 years. So 2,000 years ago, wheat was about 13 foot high. It would be all over the place height-wise. And recently they've bred it down and down. When I was young, wheat was about this high, or this high maybe, and now it's about this high. They're trying to get it right down virtually to the ground. And I was walking the other day in the country, and I was talking to this farmer who I met on the route, and they were saying that now what they're doing is they're spraying the glyphosate, the Roundup, Monsanto chemical fertilizer, right at the last minute, in the last week or 2 before harvest. And they said, well, we're not meant to do it, but the reason we do it is that even though the plants are meant to be resistant to the glyphosate, it still actually kills them. As it kills them in that last throes of life, they put all their strength into the seeds, so we get a better weight of wheat. by spraying them late with poisons. Unfortunately, to stay alive in this world where the supermarkets are insisting on ever cheaper prices, they're forcing the farmers to make compromises they wouldn't normally make just to keep alive. A lot of farmers wouldn't eat their own produce, they keep a little small holding round the side so they don't have to eat poisoned food. It's just us who are meant to eat stuff. So, what is it that makes us well at the end of the day? What makes us well is our immune system. How can you boost your immune system? Because remember, we're self-repairing. You know, we are designed to self-repair. So if you've got a problem with your body, something's going wrong for some reason, well, quite simply, you're having problems self-repairing. So why should that be? Well, there are three reasons why you can't self-repair. It could be that you've had some sort of physical damage, it could be that you've got a toxin in you, or it could be that you've got a nutrient deficiency. Because it doesn't matter how many nasty germs might be lurking around in this room. If we're all really strong and our immune system's working properly, well, they all bounce off. Let's take some serious stuff, a serious infection, polio, TB, rubella, you know, mumps, measles, any of those really, really difficult things. Can they be cured? Yes, they can. In the 1960s, there was a doctor called Fred Klenner. Now, what he was doing is was experimenting along with people like Linus Pauling of using high-dose vitamins. And Dr. Klenner's thing was to, using an IV drip, he would take patients, let's say, with polio, which most people believe that polio cannot be cured, cannot be recovered from. He was injecting 200 grams of vitamin C in the form of sodium ascorbate into people with polio. So that's almost a quarter of a kilo. It's not just like half a gram or something you might get in a health food store. 200 grams straight in the vein, right? And people were recovering from polio, being cured in 3 days. People were being cured of measles. There was a measles outbreak recently in the UK. There's no need for a measles outbreak. Vitamin C fixes measles. Vitamin C in high enough quantities fixes almost everything. Now let's take measles. Let's say a child has gone blind from measles, because measles is a dangerous thing if you don't look after yourself. Children can go blind from measles. So what Dr. Klenner discovered in the 1960s was if he added vitamin A to the intravenous drip, even though the child might have been blind for a few days, they get all the sight back, because it's a vitamin A problem. Anybody who's got night blindness, you know, find increasing difficulty seeing at night, you've got a vitamin A deficiency going on. You need to eat more unpasteurized butter. You need to eat more orange fruits and vegetables. If you're lucky enough to have a Waitrose up here, they're the only shop I know that sell unpasteurized butter. And unpasteurized butter is an incredible health food. You know, if I wanted to get well, I would eat unpasteurized dairy, okay, preferably from Jersey cows. You know, to be well, all you've got to do is do what our ancestors did. You know, your ancestors kept your families alive forever, before doctors were invented, before houses, before anything. So, is the food good for you or bad for you? Would your ancestors have recognised it? If your ancestors went into the supermarket, they wouldn't recognise hardly anything.
You're talking about dairy. I've been reading that dairy is usually indicated of breast cancer. I mean, all the books there, they lay off, especially women, lay off dairy, leave it back and play.
Well, bear in mind there are very much two types of dairy. You know, what we consider, generally speaking, as dairy is pasteurized, dead food. Let's say you take a cow, and they've just had a calf. You take the milk from the cow, you pasteurize it, you give it to the baby calf. What will happen to the baby calf? Well, it definitely won't thrive. It might die, but it definitely won't grow into a healthy cow because you've killed its food. You know, milk is white blood cells. Milk is an alive, very complex mixture of bacteria and enzymes and so on. And if you kill it, by pasteurization, it's useless. It's a useless food. Most babies who are allergic to cow's milk aren't allergic to unpasteurized cow's milk. It's the pasteurization that's the problem. So while there is a large body of evidence to say if you've got cancer, you want to avoid dairy and meat, I personally would contend that a small amount of unpasteurized dairy, particularly as yogurt, has a lot of beneficial effects for the immune system, because your immune system is in the gut. Your immune system is all those live entities that you're in symbiotic relationship with. So, but also remember that everybody's different. You know, imagine we were all brought up in the high Arctic and we'd been living on 90% fat and whale blubber. You know, if we suddenly went to southern India and we're told we're going to have to eat a southern Indian vegetarian diet, I don't think we'd do very well. And similarly, the southern Indian vegetarian wouldn't do very well in Alaska. But for us, if our ancestors ate dairy, I would say there's a reasonable chance that our gut is not only assimilated to dealing with dairy, but expecting the bacteria that the dairy would have given us. So I'm a big fan of Jersey unpasteurized dairy produce, but obviously everybody's different. Some people get on with it really badly. Unpasteurized cheese.
Why Jersey?
Oh, because you know those Friesian Holstein cows, the ones that have udders that are so.
I have a farm, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, you see that those cows where their udders are so swollen they're virtually dragging along the ground, and the milk that those cows produce is hugely different from a chemical mineral analysis perspective to the rich yellow Jersey milks.
It's farming milk, we call it white water milk. I milk Montbéliards, which are from Switzerland and eastern France.
And they have a yellow milk?
Yeah, there's much better milk, higher content of catechosin. It's used in the confit cheese, used in the baking.
Well, it's, good quality milk is so important. I mean, 200 years ago, if somebody was ill, they might well go to the mountains of Switzerland to have the dairy cure, where people would eat lots and lots of cream and butter and high quality milk. And, you ask any child, what do cows eat? And they will tell you, grass. This answer is wrong. Cows eating grass these days in a modern farm where it's been planted, say, with ryegrass, they're eating a monoculture. Cows don't eat grass. Cows eat rich meadows. Cows eat pasture, wild flowers, herbs, mushrooms. Cows are tree grazing animals. Cows, given half a chance, live in a forest. They eat trees. The cows that we're given the milk from are starving, as are most people. Most people have malnutrition. Anybody who's overweight, they've got malnutrition. Most people have got malnutrition. And the animals are having a really rough time with it. I feel very sorry for the animals. 70% of antibiotics are used for animals. And why do they use it for animals? Because it makes them fat. What do you give a laboratory animal to make them fat? Well, antibiotics work really well for that. So does monosodium glutamate. And they're hiding MSG, monosodium glutamate, in all foods these days that are processed. But they've changed the name. They don't call it monosodium glutamate anymore because nobody would buy that. Now they call it yeast protein, vegetable protein. They've found 130 names plus to disguise MSG in something that sounds great. You have a look at processed foods and say things like yeast protein or hydrolyzed vegetable protein. They're shoving MSG in everything and people are wondering why they're putting on weight. If your ancestors would recognize the food, eat it. Food comes wrapped in skin. Food does not come in packets. That's not food. I was talking about this stuff. Medicinal mushrooms are super important. The Chinese valued medicinal mushrooms so much that a couple of thousand years ago, if you were caught with cordyceps mushrooms, which was the emperor's favourite, they'd kill you. it's the same as getting caught with
Well,
swan.
that's not a health food then.
No, not the death part. Yes, there's a wonderful story about a man who got caught for shooting a peacock, and obviously there was a great outcry that he could shoot a peacock, and he got taken to court, and the judge said, after he'd sentenced him for shooting this peacock, he said, you know, I just want to know, what was it like to eat? And he said, just like swan. My lord. Anyway, this is chaga mushroom. This comes from birch trees primarily, and you may have seen it. You may have seen silver birches with a sort of blacky, dark brown lump growing out, and that's chaga mushroom. And there was a book by Alexander Solzhenitsyn called The Cancer Ward, where they escape from their Siberian prison camp and they go out searching for the cancer-curing chaga mushroom, which they find. And this stuff comes from Siberia, but you can find it in Scotland as well. And what you do is you get a pan, get a bottle of wine, red wine's nice, pour it in the pan, same volume of water, then you get a few lumps of chaga, say about the size of twice my thumb, 3 times my thumb would be probably fine, and you put it in a slow cooker, and you cook it for about 3 days. And then you drink, you could have, let's say, 1/8 of a teaspoonful, or 1/4 of a teaspoonful, once a day, or 5 times a day if you weren't feeling well. And there's almost nothing better to kickstart the immune system apart from eating healthy bacteria and probiotics. And any of the remedies ought, if they're good, they should work equally well on humans, animals and plants. You should be able to give all these things right across the range of the kingdoms, and all should benefit. And a lot of animals are being cured of all sorts of things with extract of chaga mushroom. Another thing that's curing animals and people alike, which is very important to know about, is colloidal silver. Could I just ask, how many people use colloidal silver? Oh, well, that's pretty good. At least 1/3 of you are using colloidal silver. All of you would be using it if you knew how important it is. The first time I ever used it on somebody other than myself was I met this lady about 5 years ago who had MRSA. She'd gone to the hospital for a very minor shoulder operation, come out with a flesh-eating disease, and 3 years of being treated by the doctor for the MRSA, she was worse. She told me it was in her eyes, she was getting visual problems. You don't want a flesh-eating disease in your eyes, it's one of the worst places to have one. And so I told her to change her diet, I told her to take some supplements, and I told her to drink colloidal silver. 6 days later, I ring her up and say, how's the MRSA? She says 95% better. 3 weeks later, she got a clean bill of health from the doctor. MRSA gone, cured. The doctors can't do that. This is just with colloidal silver. How much did the colloidal silver cost? 5p, probably. Was she permanently cured? Yes. What can you use colloidal silver for? Well, tooth infections, that's the end of tooth infections, the end of gum infections, the end of any infections. How long has colloidal silver been known about? Thousands and thousands of years. When they pull up amphora of wine from old Greek or Roman galleons, almost invariably there would be silver in there, and it's still drinkable if there's silver in there. Silver is still used today in hospitals. They put silver in infants' eyes to stop gonorrhea. They use silver in the burns units. They spray silver on the bandages and so on, because the doctors know in the burns units that if they put silver on a burn, it will cure it in half the time without infection. You can buy colloidal silver. I sell it on the website. But ideally, the thing to do is to buy a colloidal silver generator so you can make it yourself. You need to start with distilled water, so you really need a water distiller as well. So to get a really good quality colloidal silver generator that turns itself off, which is very important, plus costs a distiller, it's going to knock you back about £300. Once you've got that kit of parts, not only can you save your own life and stop infections, but you can stop infections for your whole street, for everybody you know. You can make loads of it once you've got your own machine, and I'd recommend that everybody buys one. Very, very simple, lifetime investment, very, very important. More or less any infection can be beaten with colloidal silver. It's also good to use topically. We sell a version on the website which is mixed with argan oil and aloe vera, so people who've got any skin issues, you can cure that. Talking of skin issues, I should just tell you that many people come with psoriasis and eczema, and I've seen, as a generality, psoriasis and eczema cured in days using fulvic minerals, Lugol's iodine, magnesium. Those three alone often will cure eczema and psoriasis. I would add to that a really good multi-mineral. So on the website we sell a food-based multi-mineral, multivitamin that is natural and really works. And you know, I mentioned these 100 nutrients that you need. If you're eating a really good diet of vegetables, you should get all the calcium you need. If for some reason you're not getting enough calcium, the best thing to do is to get some eggshells, heat them up in a pan or in the oven for 5 minutes, just toast them until they dry, and pour some vinegar on, shove it in the liquidizer, and then take a little quarter of a teaspoonful at the most of eggshell dissolved in vinegar, and you've got a really natural, bioavailable calcium supplement. But most people don't need calcium. Most people have got enough calcium in their system. What they're lacking is magnesium, the opposite of what the medical profession might tell you. Okay. Let's just talk about vitamin C. The first time I ever saw cancer cured, and obviously I can't talk about curing cancer, I don't cure anything, I only teach people how to be healthy. Because in 1939 they passed a law called the 1939 Cancer Act, which gave doctors the monopoly on cancer. You know, the Monopolies and Mergers Commission allowed it to happen, so that only doctors can cure cancer, nobody else can. You can go to prison for a couple of years if you say that you can cure cancer. They don't like that at all. It's their money-making scam, and they love it. Dentists have the same thing. Dentists have a total monopoly on the mouth. The doctors only have a monopoly on cancer, but nobody's allowed to work on your teeth unless they're a dentist. And dentists, of course, are completely bound, as doctors are, by the rules. So let's say a dentist wanted to tell you what they were taught at school, that mercury in your amalgam fillings is the most dangerous and toxic metal that they can think of. If they were to tell you that, the General Dental Council would strike them off, because the Dental Council has decided that mercury in your amalgam fillings is safe, and that's that. They're not allowed to tell the truth, even if they want to. And I know a number of alternative dentists who are constantly running into problems for telling the truth, because the truth doesn't suit the medical model of making money from illness. Right. The future of medicine, I would say it's a number of forms. Light. I use light in various forms. But water, I would suggest to you, is the future of medicine. Changing the structure of water. Shortly on the website, probably in a couple of weeks or so, we'll have a new device which changes the structure of water. If you water your plants with it, the plants will grow at about twice the power that they did before. It's amazing for farmers. People are having some great results from drinking this water. You saw what happened with the water and the tea bag. You can have amazing effects with water, and I would suggest that if you pay attention to anything, water is the next thing to look at. A shower, for about 12 quid you can buy these shower filters. it's important to understand that while the water you take in through drinking can have a positive or negative effect, water goes straight in through the skin, and you're probably getting more chlorine when you have a bath or a shower than you may be through drinking it. Just in case any of you ever get cast away on a lifeboat without water, if you get out of the lifeboat and into the ocean, instead of dying of thirst, your body will filter pure water into your body. The body is very much a two-way valve, and anything you put onto your body, onto the skin, goes in. The skin is the biggest organ of the body. Could I ask how many people would eat their shampoo? Surprisingly, not so many of you put in. Oh, you'd eat your shampoo, that's great. A couple of people, 3 people would eat their shampoo, which is the way it should be, because anything you're putting onto your skin, be it shampoo or any soap, whatever you like, it's going straight in. So if you wouldn't eat it, you are anyway. It's going straight into the bloodstream, straight into your brain. So our ancestors, if they wanted a shampoo, they probably wouldn't have used one because water's normally fine. If your nutrition's good, you don't need a shampoo or a conditioner. There's people whose nutrition is poor, who they've got dry hair, and therefore they assume they need something to add like a conditioner, but really, the conditioning comes from the inside out. If you're eating enough oils and vitamins and minerals, you shouldn't need to add all this stuff. People who are putting creams on their body, well, why? Why would you do that? If your nutrition is fine, you don't really need to add this stuff. So, how are we doing on time? It's about what time have I got till?
10:30.
Right, okay. So we've got another 15 minutes or so, and perhaps at this stage it might be useful to throw the floor over to questions. Let me just tell you a few other things. Vaccines. If you're thinking of having a vaccination, or you're thinking of giving one to your dog or your cat or your budgie, here are the, these are figures, this is for mumps, but it could be any of the infectious diseases. Here, at the end of the 19th century, we had a peak of infectious diseases in the UK, over a million. No, I'm reading that wrong. Sorry, over 140,000. Now, then, when the First World War happened, there were huge advances in medicine, the understanding of health. People suddenly started to understand that you needed to wash your hands, and indoor toilets became the norm, and people understood a bit more about nutrition and vitamins and so on. So the rate of infectious diseases absolutely plummeted until here, you get to the 1950s and 60s, and it's here, at the very bottom of the chart, where they introduced vaccinations and claimed the benefit of all that. And if you look, I haven't brought it with me, but if you look at the flu vaccinations, you'll see when they did bring in the flu vaccinations that the level of flu went up, not down. This is I know it's hard to see, here's ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. In the blue are the unvaccinated, so hardly anybody used to get it when they're unvaccinated, but when you're vaccinated, you get something like 10 to 20 times more bowel problems like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. The vaccines are causing a host of damage. Don't have vaccines. It is foolish. Okay, any questions that anybody has? Yes?
I might be mistaken, but you got a bag out and you were going to say something about vitamin C.
Oh, yes, I was, wasn't I? Okay, yeah, the first time I saw cancer cured was with vitamin C. It was my dad's best friend. It was 25 years ago plus. He'd gone through the cancer system the first time. He'd had a kidney removed. He'd had all sorts of issues. And he told me that he wasn't going to do that again. And he rang up Linus Pauling, the only man who's ever won a Nobel Prize as an individual twice. Found him in the phone book. So it just shows it's always worth trying. You know, don't be put off by anything. And Linus Pauling says, build up slowly, but as fast as you can, to taking 25 grams of vitamin C a day. So he told me what happened next. At this point, he had 6 weeks to live, something like that. But he was still feeling fine because he hadn't taken the chemo. Remember, it's the chemo that normally knocks people for 6, not necessarily the cancer that does it. Anyway, he was feeling fine. He's on his way to the doctor's office in New York, where he gets mugged. 6 guys jump him and try to mug him. He was a really big, strong guy, despite the fact he had cancer. And he decided he wasn't going to let this happen. And he told me he was sure he'd broken the arm of one, and they all ran off without taking anything from him. He arrives at the doctor's office. The doctor says, well, I don't know what you've been doing, but the cancer's gone. And he lived another 25 years. When he did die, he didn't die of cancer. That was on 25 grams of vitamin C a day. These days, to get over cancer, you need more than that, because we're subjected to so many more toxins than we were. So there are a number of different types of vitamin C. The one that my dad's best friend got better from was just this version, simple ascorbic acid, and half a kilo costs about 10 quid, so it's very cheap. This version is made from fruits. This is made from camu and rosehip and acerola cherry and stuff like that. And the difference is that while all the types of vitamin C work, doesn't matter which type you want, but you do want a pure one and non-GMO, this stuff lasts about 2 hours in the body, but a natural vitamin C gets recycled over and over, so it lasts more like 24 hours. So while it's more expensive to buy pure fruit vitamin C, it's actually not that more expensive in reality. I take a tablespoonful or 2 of this fruit one every day because it tastes great, mainly because we've got lots of strawberry, organic. All the fruits are slow dried, so they're dried at very low temperatures, thus retaining the vitamin content. And I think vitamin C is super important. It's super important for the eyes. It's worth understanding that people who are recovering from blindness, you know, there's certain things that we think, oh, well, that's it, you know, my eyes are gone, nothing can be done. I improved my eyesight two lines. And what I started doing is I started taking big doses of vitamin C every day, maybe up to 10 grams a day. I started taking astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is one of the most researched of all the sort of new supplements out there. I recommend anybody goes for astaxanthin. Very powerful, very good for the eyes. Goji berries, I sell goji berries on the website, the most potent of all the berries. Incredibly good for you and very good for fixing eyes. Lutein, if you've got some marigolds growing in the garden, you can make some marigold tea and get lutein. Then there are 2 other devices that people are using to get better from illness. If I can find one, I think I might have left it at, These cure blindness. This is called scalar, also known as the pain genie. These were developed by the Russians for space travel. You know, they'd watched Star Trek, they'd seen the devices to get you better. And, you know, when the space race happened, the Americans were the first to realize, well, maybe they're not, but anyway, the first to do something about pens in space. You can't use a normal pen in space because they don't work. So the Americans spent $20 million in the 60s developing the space pen, which would write upside down and write in space. The Russians, who couldn't afford $20 million, they took pencils. And of course, both sides realized that you can't use drugs in space because they're recycling the water. So if one person takes an antibiotic, then everybody on the space shuttle is taking the same drugs. So the Russians developed this device. It's a sort of biofeedback device. And not only does it repair people who are ill, but it stops you getting ill in the first place. It basically beams electrons into the body. And I won't go into too much depth with this, but it is one of the most amazing tools you can possibly use. They cost about £450, so they're not cheap, but you can reverse blindness with these. Another method to reverse blindness, just for your interest, is to use ozone. There are 2 types of ozone generators. This one is basically, well, just to give you an idea how modern pharmaceutical medicine is and how old electrical medicine is. The hieroglyphs on the pyramids they're showing the use of frequency medicine. They show people being led into the treatment room. There's a bowl of water with a torpedo fish in it, that's like an electric eel. And they were treating people with electricity thousands of years ago. They were treating people with essential oils. Essential oils are amazing, and I have lots of them somewhere. Anybody who's interested, you can smell some of these afterwards. The earliest essential oil still that's ever been found in the world is 8,000 years old, Mesopotamian. The pyramids are absolutely full of hieroglyphs showing how to make essential oils. You know, the whole myrrh, frankincense, gold. I think most people probably feel that the frankincense and the myrrh were in an essential oil form. And essential oils can be hundreds of times more powerful than the herb it came from. You know, an essential oil, it may take dozens and dozens of plants to get one drop of essential oil. And just in the last year, I've been working a lot with essential oils. It's very important to be very careful with essential oils. If you go into the average health food store, the essential oils there are meant for burning for the smell. They're not made for internal use. But there are essential oils made by certain people that are sufficiently safe for internal use. And one of the best examples of this is a blend of oils called Thieves' Blend. And when the Black Death was going on, the plague, what they'd do is they'd come round saying, bring out your dead, and they'd come round with a horse and cart, and people living in the house would bring out their dead people until there was nobody left to bring out. And they didn't, in the Black Death, they didn't bother to board up the houses, even of the rich people, because nobody dared go in there because they might get the Black Death. Except this one group of thieves who became famous for going into all the rich people's houses and stealing everything. And when they finally caught this bunch of thieves, they wanted to know how they did it. And the thieves explained that they took a piece of cloth and wrapped it round their face, and they put on the essential oil of thyme, rosemary, oregano, clove, and that was sufficient to make them bulletproof. And in the First World War, there were French field hospitals, because the French were very into essential oils, who were using Thieves' Blend and getting a light and allowing the thieves' oil blend to evaporate off. And in those field hospitals, infections hardly ever happened. And you've heard about guerrilla gardening, where people plant seeds in roundabouts and so on. I was thinking that guerrilla fragrancing would be good. You pop into a hospital, you stick some essential oils into the air conditioning vents, and then MRSA and infectious diseases would probably stop. Essential oils I'd recommend everybody look into, because they're very important, but you do need to find a very good source. And in a couple of weeks' time, we'll have them on our website. Tomorrow, if anybody's interested, I do a program on ukcolumn.org called The Health Revolution. And tomorrow night, I'm interviewing a chap called Paul Dean, who I think is probably one of the absolute leading experts in the world about essential oils. So if any of you are watching UK Column tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, we'll be talking for a couple of hours about essential oils and what they can do. To give you an idea of how powerful they were, and this lady showed me her toe. She'd just come back from the hospital, or two toes. She had ingrown toenails cut out, and she undid the bandages fresh from the hospital, and there was pus pouring out of both toes. We got some essential oil of helichrysum, put a drop or two on each toe. Within 1 minute, the pus had stopped. She hadn't been able to walk on that. Within 15, 20 minutes, the pain had subsided enough for her to start walking. And the power of essential oils is really worth understanding. People haven't grasped yet how important they are. Peppermint oil, and I might have some here. Peppermint is the frequency of the brain, And let's say you're on your way home, it's late at night, you're falling asleep while driving, you want to wake yourself up. Put a drop of peppermint oil on your tongue, and you'll wake right up. If you've got a slight headache, touch the top of your mouth with the peppermint oil, and many people find their headaches go away. Not everybody, and not in every case. Headaches, by the way, are generally dehydration. Migraines are headaches with more dehydration. Epileptic fits are quite often dehydration as well. Okay, any more questions? Yes?
In the 1930s and 40s, they used to sell something called a violet ray machine, which is like an ozone now. Are these things effective?
Yeah, violet ray. Nikola Tesla was the man who came out with the violet ray. Nikola Tesla, as probably you all know, is the most brilliant genius scientist ever. We would have had free electricity wirelessly if it hadn't been stopped. And violet rays, you can still buy them on eBay, the original, because things used to be made to last, as we know. You can buy violet ray kits from the 1930s, and you can almost be guaranteed they'll still work, plug it straight in. They used to be really cheap. You could buy a whole set for about 20 or 30 quid, and they're great. There's always glass tubes, and they light up violet colour. Then they got discovered by the fetish people, mainly because they do an anal probe. And now they've gone up dramatically in price, which is a shame.
No, get to the bottom of it.
That's right. There are so many frequency devices out there working all sorts of ways. I use a frequency device also invented by Nikola Tesla, using radio frequencies, works at about 500,000 hertz. And what you can do with RF frequencies is amazing. The most dramatic result I think I probably saw with that is I met this chap with cancer. He'd been sent home to die. He'd made his will. He had the goodbye party. He'd had brain cancer. Almost everybody I've come across with brain cancer, they have the brain cancer exactly where they hold their mobile phone. It's never on that side. It's always on the mobile phone side. He was virtually dead. He could barely walk. He couldn't say more than 3 words without getting his words mixed up. And we got him on a good diet, we gave him supplements, and this is all about getting his health back, nothing to do with curing cancer, because it would be illegal to do that. It's just about him recovering his health. And he used a frequency device, one of these Tesla frequency devices, and within 2 days he was off the morphine, and he got a clean bill of health from the doctors, completely cured of cancer after about 10 months. But I would say to anybody who's got cancer, if you want to cure yourself of that, it's a full-time job. It's from getting up in the morning till the moment you go to sleep, it's a full-time job. And clearly the cancer's happened for a reason. It's to teach something, and the people who are going to learn that lesson are going to be the survivors.
Does sugar feed cancer?
Yep, it does. Things that feed cancer, Otto Warburg got the Nobel Prize in 1931 for showing the results of his previous 10 years research, which shows if you take a normal cell and you deprive it of oxygen to survive, that cell becomes anaerobic, and instead of breathing oxygen it uses glucose instead, and that is a cancer cell.
Yeah.
So, bearing in mind it's gone from using oxygen to using glucose, if you put anything sweet into the body of a cancer patient, that's going to be feeding cancer. So, the person with cancer, they want to eat the most natural diet they possibly can, avoid too many carbs, avoid fruit, except berries. Berries would be the safest, least sweet fruit. And, anybody with cancer needs to realise that there are cures out there galore if they choose to look. There's a website called canceriscurablenow.com, and Cancer Curable Now is full of people who've cured their cancer and saying how they did it. But they didn't cure it by going to the doctor generally.
Yeah. What do you know about Candida?
Well, Candida is thrown out of balance by problems in the gut, like drinking chlorinated water and so on. But it's not that a candida overgrowth is the problem. The candida, you know, your body never makes a mistake. You know, the candida, while it isn't you, it's a yeast. If there's too much of it, it's because the purpose of candida in your body is to eat dead tissue. So if you've got an issue going on, it may be that, you know, most health professionals say, oh, you've got too much candida, it's candida that's the problem. Well, let's wind back one from that. Maybe it's not the candida that's the problem. Maybe the candida is a symptom of what the problem is, and the candida is doing its best to correct your imbalance. So let's say you've got a lot of parasites. That could cause an overgrowth of candida as the candida tries to deal with the residues put out by the parasites. It's a complex thing. I would suggest that the first thing to do for anybody who's got a candida overgrowth is to balance their gut flora by eating fermented vegetables. You know, all your ancestors, I don't know where you came from pretty much, to get through a cold winter, you would have eaten fermented foods. You know, your ancestors would have taken the leg of pork and hung it up in the wind to dry and turn it into ham. They would have fermented pickles and chutneys and jams and beers and wines and cheeses and yogurts and all the vegetables. You know, our ancestors were almost all farmers. You know, we didn't have transport, you know, we had to grow our own stuff. Now let's say you've got a big pile of onions left over at the end of the season, well, you would have pickled them, made pickled onions. So how do you make pickled onions? Most people think, well, you get a jar, you get some onions, and you tip vinegar over it, you say a magic word, it becomes pickled onions. But that's not how your ancestors made it. How your ancestors made pickled onions was they got the onions, they got the jar, they got some water, they made sure that all the onions were underneath the water, and within a week or so, that water would have changed to vinegar, would have gone, you know, it's a fermentation process, goes through alcohol and becomes vinegar. So if you want to ferment foods, all you've got to do is hold them under water. Now, if you want to be sure that you don't get a few rogue bacteria, you could put some salt in the water, and that's what generally people did. They usually held the vegetables under salted water, just salted enough to taste, so it's nice. So I mean, what I like to do is I like to get, let's say, some red cabbage, some beetroot, some celery, carrots, sweet potatoes, anything you like really. Chop it up really small, put it in a jar, put it in the salt water, and then maybe put maybe a saucer or something on top with a rock on top, just to make sure everything's held underneath. If a bit of vegetable popped up on the surface, it might go mouldy. Just like the mould on the top of a jam, you just scrape that away and everything is all right underneath. So let's say you chop up all your veg and maybe put in some garlic and onions and chilli for a bit of flavour. Now you've got it all underneath the salted water, put the lid on, shove it in a dark cupboard for a week, take it out, you'll have a really sharp, delicious pickle. You know, sauerkraut or whatever it is you've made. You could do the same with tomatoes and peppers and onions and chili and garlic or whatever, and make a tomato salsa. It only takes a week, and you've got a factory going with vitamin C, with B vitamins galore, and you're making probiotics like you wouldn't believe. If you go to a health food store and spend 25 quid on some probiotics to fix your gut, well, you could have 100 times the power just in one jar of fermented vegetables. So I would recommend that everybody goes home and starts fermenting vegetables. It's no good buying fermented stuff like sauerkraut from the shop, because that's all been pasteurised. You know, on a hot day, if they didn't pasteurize it, the jar might explode. But yeah, I would recommend everybody makes fermented foods and eat as much fermented stuff as you can. You know, your bodies are expecting it. It's winter. You should be eating loads of fermented stuff. And that's how our immune system repairs itself and gets strong.
Going back to what you were saying about toxoplasmosis and rats, well, I read that study a while ago which said that it was the way that toxoplasmosis wanted to get into a cat to deer the rat. So when you were saying that bikers were, a lot of them are suffering from that, which makes them reckless, why is that then?
Well, probably they've got a cat at home.
They get eaten by cars, that's for sure.
Presumably, they've caught the toxin from a cat. I imagine it's just cross-species somehow. And I don't suppose, you know, I can't explain why it makes people reckless, but that just seems to be the effect.
Is it curable?
Well, yeah, you can kill parasites. I mean, essential oils, you know, the thieves blend that I was mentioning. If you take thieves blend internally, you can kill parasites that way. You can kill parasites in all sorts of ways. You can use frequency devices. You can use herbs like wormwood, black walnut hull, clove. You know. But the thing is, when you're killing parasites, you've got the 3 stages. You've got the egg stage, the adult stage, and the larval stage. You've got to kill all 3. So it's a bit of a, you know, you've got to pay attention to get the parasites right. But all of us have got parasites. But in some cases, they're killing us. Right. Well, with Crohn's disease, the first thing one should consider is whether he's allergic to wheat or grains in general. So what I would do if I was suspecting Crohn's is I'd be using probiotics. I'd be using fermented foods or buying probiotics, and I'd cut all grains out of my diet completely for a bit and see whether that improves it. You know, it's. You know, a lot of people get an allergic reaction to grains, and the grains aren't what they used to, as we discussed earlier. You know, wheat used to be 30 foot high, and now they've hybridized it so much. People's guts aren't registering it, so there are a whole host of issues going on. But many people have cured Crohn's, and Crohn's, as with any other disease, if he went onto Google and put Crohn's natural cure onto Google, he'll find the answer. It'll be on page 1 of Google. Right now, Google is fantastic. You know, the magic words are natural cure. Whatever problem you've got, natural cure, it's there on page 1 every time. So it's not too difficult. Some people find that they have other things that are causing the gut reaction. For some people, it could be dairy. You know, really one should cut right down and go for absolute natural, pure foods like our ancestors would have recognised. And you can use a pulse. You know, if you take a pulse, then you eat a food that's maybe giving you a bad reaction, your pulse is likely to rise. And so there are different ways to test your pulse. Sometimes you can just do it in, you know, you get up in the morning, you eat the wheat, and your pulse rises, then you know you've got an allergy. Some people, they maybe need to swear off wheat for a couple of weeks, then take their pulse, then eat a bit of wheat, take their pulse again, and if it's risen by, let's say, 8 or 10 points or more, then that's an allergic reaction going on. But Crohn's is recoverable.
What's your take on urine therapy?
Well, I know somebody who, after 28 days, found that all the stiffness on their body had completely gone away. They went on a urine-only diet. Right, recycling urine, not eating anything, not drinking anything except urine. And within 28 days, they're in their 40s, they then said they could do all the yoga postures they could do as a child, they could do full lotuses again, all the health problems have gone.
Their own urine?
Yes.
Oh, they've got some metallic, and they tested that, and they just poo-pooed it. That's just been on recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot that can be done with urine. I mean, I haven't tried this, but there are several people who say, look, if you get bitten by a poisonous snake, pee, and you will have the homeopathic remedy in your pee, which you don't have to drink. That apparently within 15 seconds, the body makes the homeopathic remedy, which is in your pee. If you get stung by jellyfish, if you get on holiday, pee on it. It stops the sting. Pee is very useful, and it's a pure substance. It's not you know, the impurities come out the other end.
Well, it's a disinfectant, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Borax.
Yes.
Can you buy it? Because I can buy it again. It's all gone off shop.
Yeah, they've deliberately taken it off out of sale. You can still get it, but when I used to buy it years ago, it was just it just said borax. Now it's got like skull and crossbone warnings, even though it's 20 times safer than salt. But it's because they know about the arthritis thing. I don't think I explained about the arthritis and boron, that Jamaica has the highest rate of arthritis of any country. Israel has the lowest rate of arthritis in any country. Jamaica has the lowest rate of boron in the soil of any country. Israel has the highest rate of boron. Right? Boron arthritis, massive link. Massive link. You can buy boron online as borax. You can buy it online. You can go to a vet supplier and buy it.
Well, that's what's your arthritis then?
Yes.
Because I have my cousin, he's cider vinegar, and he's on molasses, and he's had a bolt in his foot, and he's had his surgery, and they wanted to do other damn foot, and he's refusing to take my therapy, so will borax help do that?
Well, probably, yes. You know, I mean, borax is very, very, very important. The boron in borax is very, very important.
Yeah.
You know, as in magnesium, as is sulfur.
Oh, yeah, sulphate, not peaches, not prunes. What's the yellow sulphur? Apricots. Is that the right sulphur?
As far as I know, there's some in apricots. I don't know how much.
So I'm getting eating sulphur apricots then?
Yeah, or you can supplement with something called MSM. Really about 5 grams of MSM,
yeah,
it would be better.
The apricots have got sulphur and that will be helping.
And garlic and onion.
Yeah.
You know, you want to recover from illnesses, garlic, onion, and cruciferous vegetables.
Cruciferous?
Yeah, like broccoli and cabbage.
All right.
All right, well, thank you very much.